Just before I start my little monologue today, I want to just let you know that there's an event going on in Sussex in which you can see me live. And I do think these live events are very important, especially with the advent of AI, because there's so many things that you can do now with AI, generating pictures of all of us and creating deep fake videos. So much so you may not even know it's really me. But when you turn up at an event and you can see someone and poke them and prod them, you can tell whether they're real and whether their message is actually genuine. Where on an AI thing, I could well be sitting here, turn up on your video, and you could think you're listening to me, and I'd be saying things like, oh, it's time to go and get your booster, which is actually probably something that I would never say. So if you want to see a bit of comedy as well, there's David Edelman, the people's lawyer, and also Phil Zimmerman. We're putting together this comedy, or we've been asked to turn up and do this comedy on the 18th of November in Hope, Sussex, in East Sussex. If you fancy it, posters on the screen, go and have a look. Anyway, I just thought I'd give that a bit of a plug. I hope you don't mind. So on with today's monologue. And I've been noticing that there's a lot of discussion about democracy at this moment in time. We're thinking about the election coming up and who are we going to have? Are you going to have Labour? Are you going to have Conservative? And of course, my feeling is that all of this nonsense is over and that Parliament, the House of Commons, the House of the Office of the Prime Minister, all of that is defunct because they're corporations, they're for-profit corporations. You hear me talking about it all the time, and they're just there to try and trick you and get a lot of money out of you. They're not really an assembly of people who've got your best interests at heart. And we've seen that with all the nonsense that they've been putting forward. They come up and they say, oh, we've got these brilliant ideas, we're just going to shove them out. Nobody's actually asked for it. Nobody said, please, please, government, could I have digital IDs? Please, 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 government, instead of just using cash and the system we've got, even though it's a debt-based money system, fiat currency, please, 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 could I have a central bank digital currency that's actually going to be programmable money and can decide whether I can buy something or not at the time of purchase? Nobody's sort of said, please, 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 can I have more surveillance society? Could you put cameras up everywhere that's taking my biometrics and taking my DNA and this, that and the other wherever I go? So if I've got to use a thumbprint or something or a QR code or go into a supermarket, please, 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 government, could I have more of that wonderful, highly processed food that's not very good for me? Please, 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 government. Nobody's asked to say, could I have the farmers being attacked left, right and centre if they want to try and grow all the food that we're quite used to and is healthy for us? Oh, please, 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 government, could we have a suicide policy of net zero in which we try and reduce carbon emissions to the point that actually it would damage the planet so that things don't grow and that we get extinct? Please, 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 government. This is the sort of government and the democracy that we think that we've got, and this is what we're asking for. And in my opinion, it's absolutely wrong, and we need something else. This move from corporate Britain to a more sovereign Britain. And let's face it, democracy in and of itself doesn't seem to be a fair system at all, in my mind, in which you can say, well, 51% of the land that you're in, 51% of the voters have decided that this is the right policy, and 49% have decided that's not the policy. And so because 51 has won, you say, oh, well, the majority wins. So therefore, that's it. Well, the 49%, which is pretty much half the population who haven't voted for it, are scratching their heads going, well, hang on a minute, we're not represented at all. Is this really true? Now, if democracy went on the basis that 90% or perhaps 85% of the population actually had to agree, at least it would be most people. Most people think that whatever that policy is should go ahead. But where it's down to just half and half, you really are not really representing the whole country. And you've got an awkward situation, of course, in which you end up possibly with arguments and who knows, fisticuffs. And let's face it, democracy can be very bad because it's kind of mob rule, isn't it? Let's face it, if you've got 5 blokes and 1 woman, and the 5 blokes say, you know, let's go and have nice time with this woman, and the woman says, do you know, I'd rather you didn't. Well, that's these 5 blokes against 1 woman. Again, that's, you might say, well, hang on, the majority have gone along with it, but that woman didn't go along with it, and she's the one being abused perhaps by this so-called good time. So perhaps democracy in and of itself is not quite what we want. And we certainly aren't interested in this government. Well, at least I'm not interested in this government. And we've given them plenty and plenty of chances, haven't we? And yet every time they come out with their little begging bowl and they say, oh, you know, vote for us, we'll change this, we'll change that, we'll change that. Well, as I've said many times before, the 60 years I've been around, I certainly haven't noticed anything getting better. In fact, all these services have got worse and they've become more dictatorial and more tyrannical. So I think it is time that we move away, and I will keep saying this till I'm blue in the face. I can tell you that what we need to try and do is move away from corporate Britain into a more sovereign Britain, in which the individual, us, you and I, men and women, families, are now much more in charge and in control. Small independent businesses and sole traders. This is, and partnerships, of course, small partnerships, instead of these large corporations which seem to sort of dominate everywhere, dominate the landscape, so that when you travel about, and we'd like to retain the travelling, thank you very much, that when you travel about you see the same old tired names and their sort of bland services, instead of the wonderful individual and highly original creative services that small businesses actually bring to the fore and change into the high street. So that when you go to one part of the country, you go, look at that. You know, what happened to regional accents, for example? We ended up with this one type of accent, whereas you used to be able to go around the countryside and you could hear all sorts of different tones. You might not fully understand of it, but it gave it colour, it gave it flavour, it gave it something different. Now we end up with corporate bland Britain. And I would love to see an end to that and bring back the individual and bring back a different way. We don't want to go down the old voting thing, vote, everybody votes, you know, that's a sort of slave mentality, isn't it? If everybody votes, it's like, here we are, this is your choice. You've only got these 5 candidates and you've got to vote for which one it is. Well, I'm not keen on that. Maybe instead of saying you've only got these limited candidates, you've got to vote for it, that you actually, within your group and your area and your bunch of people, your town, you say, actually, we will elect somebody. Don't give us a selection to vote for. We will elect who we want. And so it could be anybody, and you end up electing someone, which is a much more sovereign state. And you say, actually, do you fancy this bloke? Yeah, no, I fancy, he's very good, or this woman, or whatever. And you elect somebody to represent you rather than having to vote for somebody they put up. And that is a much more positive and interesting perspective, I think. You may disagree, of course. And when you're sovereign, of course, when you're a commander of yourself, and when you're the king of your own domain, the king of your own court, then you are the one who is in charge, not them. And we've got to remember, we are sovereign people. We are the ones in charge. Man comes first, and the governments and these people who administer always come second. Although they've turned that around, like so many things in this world, it's 180 degrees, and they think that they are our masters. We've got to remind them. We've got to tell them, actually, do you know what? You're not. You're our servants. And if you start stepping out of that servitude and doing the things that we have asked you to do, then goodbye, good riddance, we don't want you. Thank you very much, kind of you to try, but now you've got a little bit above your station, you think you're higher, you think the created are better than the creator or above the creator, and that's not right. So it is time to say goodbye, I think, to this system of government and find another way. And we will find it. We can be our own bosses, and we can follow that very simple rule, the simple law, if you like, nature's law, natural law, God's law, whatever you want to call it, common law, if you like, true common law. Do no harm. Have a few basic rules for us to adhere to, and then life can be rosy again. We can sort things out with our trials by a jury of men and women, not these magistrate law courts, which is all down to this secret codes and secret oaths like the private bar guild and judges and barristers and clerks of the court with their secret oaths, their private oaths to the bar guild, pretending that they're working for the public but actually working for themselves. It's time that we got rid of all of that nonsense and we moved ahead into a new paradigm in which we, the people, are very much back in charge again, and we elect people to help us and to serve for us rather than be in this servitude where people think that they're above man and woman and want to control us. That's what I think. Anyway, if you want a bit of comedy, come along down to Hope Sussex, come and see us before the AI controlling mechanism takes over the internet and you don't know what you're listening to.